I am Doug Friedman.
And I am Meredith Levy.
And this
is your
Mental
Breakdown, the podcast.
We are your hosts, licensed psychotherapists. However, important to remember, we are not your psychotherapists.
Yes, we're not. More than likely, we're not. So, welcome. Hi, Dougie.
Welcome. Happy Earth Day.
Oh, you too. What are you doing to celebrate Earth Day?
I'm going to walk 5 miles of the Earth this morning. Well, I already did. This is coming out on Earth Day. It isn't currently Earth Day right now as we record this. So to celebrate Earth Day, I will take a nice 5-mile hike in the morning with my dog and appreciate the wonders of the earth.
That's lovely.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I just read an article on how dirt helps decrease depression. So I think I'm just going to roll around in the dirt and smell it.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yep.
The smell of dirt. Does dirt have a distinct smell?
No, but there's something about the chemical compounds or something that are similar to something and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I should pay more attention.
Wow. Is that why pigs always seem to be happy?
Oh, that's a great question, Doug.
Right?
Pigs do always seem to be happy, except for when they're in my mouth as bacon. Then my mouth is happy.
Wow. That was one of the last things when I went vegetarian and then vegan. I'm not anymore, but I did for like 6 years. That was the hardest thing to give up. And it was the smell of bacon anywhere was so tempting.
Dude, there is a Domino's at the end of my block and I walk all the time or hike. And when I'm on my way back, I just walk by it and I'm like, who thought this was a good idea? To every time I walk by, smell fucking Domino's. It smells so good. And I just keep on walking by.
When I used to go to New York and I'd walk around like I guess it was called the bakery district. And you walk in around in the morning and as soon as they like lift the gates to their places, you just smell like fresh baked goods. It's ridiculous. It smells so good. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. It was unfortunate when I lived in Spain for a year. I lived above all those little fret bakeries that you go to in the morning. And I lived like right above one. And I was like, mother effer. And I did come back a little chunkier. I'm not going to lie, but whatever.
Right. You know, when I was a kid walking to school, I used to love stopping at the bakery. And there was a bakery on the walk home. And I would always get the black and white cookie. I love the black and white cookie. I would eat often some of the cookie part, but I would pretty much just try to eat the frosting off.
Yep. So good.
Why I just wanted, I don't know. Why didn't I just get something with frosting and that's it? It's sort of like eating the top of a cupcake and not the bottom.
Why did I used to get bubblegum ice cream and make my mom eat all the ice cream so I could get to the bubblegum? Who knows?
Could have just stuck your bubblegum in the freezer.
I know.
So I want to check in on something. We said something a couple weeks ago. And full disclosure, I have failed this horribly or wonderfully, depending on how you look at it. We're talking about shutting down our laptops.
Oh, fuck.
Right? I knew it because we never talked about it. It was like 3 weeks ago. We never talked about it. It was one of the only things that I do not practice what I preach here. And I want to re-up. I want to re-up and challenge ourselves again.
That's the only thing you don't practice what you preach? I literally don't practice so much of what I preach. Are you kidding? God, you're amazing.
I try.
That's why I became a therapist. So I can tell everyone else what to do and not myself.
Do as I say, not as I do? No, I'm a lead by example kind of guy.
Fine. Me too.
All of a sudden.
No, you're right. Okay, let's redo that.
Yeah, let's redo that. And have you seen now this is the revisiting section of our podcast. I'm revisiting the laptop shutdown challenge. I want to revisit Justice League. Did you ever see the Zack Snyder version?
No.
So you still have 4 hours to go.
No, I started watching it and then realized that it's literally the same movie interspersed throughout all the rest of it. And then I was like, really? I just watched this.
It's a different cut of the movie. It has other things and it focuses, and the tone is supposed to be different.
I don't know that I'm going to redo it, but have you seen Nobody, the movie? It just came out.
Who's in it? Somebody?
I really don't know, but it's so good.
I know nothing about it.
I didn't either.
Oh, you know what I did get into is WandaVision. Have we talked about that?
Oh, no, I heard about it though. Is it good?
Oh man, I loved it. And you don't have to know the whole Marvel universe in order to get it, but very well done.
I want something with like 10 seasons.
Oh, no, this has 1 season.
Okay, whatever. I want to go back and watch something like Gossip Girl or like
One Tree Hill.
Oh, that was such a good show.
Gilmore Girls.
Such a good show. Yep, my niece rewatched that like years ago and I rewatched it with her.
Wow.
Too bad I don't want to see Game of Thrones because I would have so much to watch.
Oh, yeah. That's a real undertaking. It's kind of heavy.
Yeah.
It's pretty violent too. Like there were some scenes in there that, oof.
That's, yeah.
As we talk violence, my dog is unintentionally violent with me twice this week.
What?
Unintentionally, totally unintentionally.
Beckett?
Dogs.
What did you do?
They've got a gnarly, like the sagittal crest, the top of their heads have like a little point sometimes. And it's like super, super, super hard. And we're just like playing in the backyard and he leaps, like he's a leaper. And he leapt as I was like bending down and our heads knocked and he wins that battle every time. I was like nearly concussed. It was gnarly.
Oh my God.
I can't get mad at him.
Of course.
I can't get mad at myself. I'm just freaking hurt. The next day, I went out again and was like, okay, I'm going to be careful. I'm just going to keep my eye on him the whole time. And he smacked into my mouth and gave me a fat lip.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I had a little bloody lip. And he's just like bounces right off. He's like, hey, what's going on? Are we good? When he kind of bloodied my lip a little bit. It wasn't like bleeding profusely, but drew a little blood. And I kind of sat down on the grass, was like, oh. And he comes right over, puts his paws on my shoulders and starts licking me. Like he knew something was wrong. It's very cute.
Little gummy bear.
Yeah. Speaking of gummy bears and dogs and Drew going through what he's going through.
So listen, stick around.
Listen.
We'll be back.
We will. We'll see you in a bit. No, we won't. I always say that. We won't see you in a bit.
You'll hear us in a bit.
You will hear us in a bit.
I think first things first, financially, that's been like a huge, well, I mean, obviously the other shit with girlfriend. I'm cool with that right now. And so finances are next big topic for me right now. I'm turning 26 next year. And so with that, insurance and basically everything, which is kind of like ripping the Band-Aid off for me. Because like I'm still got the safety net. Like I feel like my Band-Aid's like just barely being peeled off at this point. They still support me in so many ways. And it's all kind of happening at once, which half of me loves and it's like thrilling and exciting. But the other half is like, oh, fuck, what do I do?
How are you feeling about that overall?
I know it's going to be okay, but I'm stressed out. I'm very, very stressed out. And I mean, I haven't really been eating a lot lately and I've been sleeping a lot less. My mind's been kind of going. And weed right now, I'm not really getting high from it. I'm just kind of like stuck in my mind racing of like, okay, well, I need to do something. What am I going to do? What's my plan? Where am I going? What's happening? And I am stressed, but I see why I'm stressed and why I'm stressed. I mean, it's normal.
Well, we're talking about a major change in your life. So it's a big change that's coming. That's something that takes a little adjusting to get used to. And maybe it's the kind of thing that you can navigate with parents. Like, okay, instead of pulling the rug out from under me, can we just like have me move from the rug to my own footing? Was that you just softened for a second?
I don't know. I go back and forth on that a lot. Knowing myself, of course, I want that to be the way it is. And I think it'd be more nurturing for me. But I think I would also be stuck in little Drew. Whereas I almost want the rug to be pulled out because that I want to be sprung into big Drew. I've said this since like the day one. Like I don't really want my parents' help, but I kind of need it.
and not having it forces you. It's the, being thrown into the deep end. You're somebody who will find a way. You always do. Maybe it doesn't have to be as shocking as being thrown into the deep end. It can still have that idea, but this is where we've talked about Vader being the motivator. When I get something like this, I need to get fired up to spring into action. You're kind of, in a sense, avoiding and not wanting to deal, but knowing it's there and not wanting to face it. I want to do it on my own. I want to do without my parents' help, but fill in the blank for me. What's the but?
And I still want them to be a part of my life. I've had such a financial relationship with my parents. I mean, it's been almost a form of like intimacy between father and child, mother and child with me. Sure. And that's kind of how I know their love to me. And so I think I'm almost scared of like they won't love me anymore type of thing, even though I know it's not true.
That's what I'm talking about with the change.
Yeah.
And that change is scary. And it's saying goodbye to one thing so we can say hello to the other. And we don't know what the other is yet, right? But what we're saying goodbye to is how I've had a sense of connection and had them involved in my life so far has been their financial support. And if we take the financial support away, are they going to be interested in me, in my life, in what I'm doing? Will they care?
I just want my dad to be there to love me and be like, I am proud of you.
Yeah, it's almost like you're thinking, oh, he might not love me anymore if he's not obligated to.
Yeah, that's crazy. I feel like both of them in perception have been obligated. And that's how I've taken their love, was obligation love, not by choice. And I see that in myself more than anything.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a really scary thought. But I also feel like that's really freeing. If we could take the obligation out, I know they're going to choose to love me anyway because they're my parents. And I love my parents and I know they love me. Like deep down, I know they do. And I just don't think I've ever looked at that as a choice. It's always been obligation. And I think that also ties into like me just being their kid. I feel like they have to love me.
We've talked about it before in terms of your mom, that she would choose drugs and ODing or suicide over you. If I were better, she wouldn't have done that. And I think what you realized more recently was, oh, that was her life, her choices. Okay. Had nothing to do with me.
But I still feel almost mourning for that. I think it's transformed from guilt to bad, which I feel better about, but it's still there. And I don't think it'll ever go away. I don't think it ever will.
What we're trying to move towards is a different way of relating to my parents, where I am separate from them. I am independent, and they might choose to be involved in my independent life. Not because they're obligated because I'm their son, but because they're choosing to be involved.
It sucks. Right now, I'm the one that texts them. Like, I'm always the one that wakes up, I love you, have a great day. It's never the opposite. And like, I've always been afraid of like, if I didn't do that, what would happen?
What would happen?
I don't know. They might text me, they might not. They might forget about me, they might not. Like, I don't know.
What happens when you do text that?
I think it's like, I'm looking for the response and I'm getting it. And so I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm. I'm highlighting that it looks like we're creating a dynamic where I'm getting this need met, but I'm getting it because I'm creating this situation. I still have an attachment to that. If we look at this with how you attach to other people in your life, you wanted that check-in, you wanted that reassurance, and creating situations where they will give you what you want.
And I feel like I'm really good at creating situations. I think I'm like really good at creating situations now to get what I want out of it. And I hate that. That sucks. I never want to be the guy that invites myself over. I want to be invited over, but I can't force it. And I feel like I force it a lot of the times.
Yeah. I mean, that's creating the situations, like you said. Like, hey, I'd really love to hang out. Okay. That might be okay.
Yeah.
It's similar to when a parent says, oh, we haven't seen you in a long time. Like, yeah, I know. Or are you saying you want to see me? It's hard to be direct because we create these situations. You're really good at it, to create the situation to get what I want. Can you just ask for what you need? Can you say what you need? With parents right now, it's going, wow, if I don't have this financial connection to them, I'm worried, I'm scared that they're not going to be connected to me. they're not going to care about me, that they'll pull away. If I don't send a text to my mom saying, I love you, morning, how you doing? I might not hear from her. So I'm creating a situation where I will. What happens when I don't?
I guess there's one way to find out. Might as well just try it, see what happens.
Look, part of being in therapy and part of working this stuff out is to go, yeah, I didn't text my mom for the last 7 mornings. I only heard from her once. And we go, what does that mean? What did that feel like? And how was that? It's creating something where you'll get to look at your own ego strength and your own self-esteem and how you feel about yourself. And if we find that, wow, I really do need a lot of validation from people, what's that about? We'll look at it.
Yeah, and I could probably tell you already, I'm already there. You already know. Even today, I was texting my mom, and I had the epiphany of I text her way too much. I feed off of this, and I need to make sure she's okay. And I saw her do that with her dad growing up. It destroyed her a lot of the times. She was super dependent on him, 3, 4, 5 calls a day, all the time. And when he passed away, it was just brutal. I had to watch all of that. I feel like me and my mom had such a similar relationship that they had that I'm going to go through that. At least that's my fear. Watched all that hurt and all that pain that she had to walk through, and nobody was there to do it with her. It was one of those things that that hurt me to watch. And I want to throw in brother in this too. She talks about how my brother never hits her up, never talks to her. Basically once he left for college, that was it. So I feel the burden of being almost an only child that talks to my parents.
And do you take that on as kind of a responsibility at this point?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why it took me so long to leave home too. Because I knew, my parents also are the type of people that don't have, they don't go out, they don't hang out with a lot of people, they kind of stick to their own and have a house in the woods and kind of do their thing. And, they're happy enough doing what they do. I was lonely living there, so I can't even imagine what it was like for them. And I feel the guilt. I'm their kid, of course I'm going to leave, and I know that. But I still feel I left them in a lot of ways. And the only thing tying me down to them right now is finances.
You're describing a lot of taking care of them and making sure they're okay.
So I think I find comfort in that.
What's comforting about that?
Knowing that I had something to do with making them okay. It reinforces what I already think in my head of me being a pillar in their life.
That sounds like a pretty heavy load to take on.
Yeah, and I think it's even harder when it's become true. I don't know if it is truth or not, but it's become truth.
For who?
Me.
Yeah. Pillars take on a lot of weight. I wonder if there's something about you being the pillar where if you take the pillar away, everything's going to crumble. But that's something you've constructed. They might be fine.
Yeah, and I think this also goes back to my all in, all out mentality. I think this is going to be a great opportunity to kind of understand what that middle ground looks like.
Yeah.
Because I really don't know what it's like not to be a pillar in their life. I have no idea what that looks like.
It's funny. I'm picturing one of those huge Roman pillars, right?
Yeah, me too.
And that's you shouldering everything and you taking the weight of everything on. And that's what you are the pillar. And that's the role that you understand, that that you're good at. And everybody depends on the pillar to keep everything in place from crumbling. So there's purpose in that.
Yeah.
In the same way that you said, my parents being out where they are, I've been there. It's really lonely. They must be lonely. Okay. What must a pillar feel like?
Probably worse, I would assume.
You don't have to assume. You do know because you are the pillar. What do you feel?
Yeah, shit. I've been thinking a lot about relationships and how I've treated people back home. And have I called enough? Have they called enough? Is this relationship a good relationship? I want to put that into my parents, but I don't know how, I don't know how to have that conversation with them because we just don't talk like this.
This is, I think, a wonderful thing about being on your own is you get to figure out who and how you want to be.
Yeah.
That's that ego strength I was talking about, where I'm not dependent on someone else validating me or being the pillar that has to be there to hold it together. When I have my values and I feel strong with my integrity, my authenticity, What kind of son do I want to be? I want to be the kind of son that just says hey to his parents.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to text every day to get a response, but can reach out when I want to reach out. That's me being the son I want to be. If the world ends tomorrow, can I say, yeah, I was the son I wanted to be?
Yeah, and I think this whole pandemic thing too has really made me think about a lot of stuff like that too. Done a lot of self-reflecting on just where I've been and done and who I've seen and in relationships more than anything. I mean, I've just met some incredible people along the way and like, that's awesome. But I've lost touch with them. Like, why does that happen? And I want to chalk it up to just seasons and people come and go and like, that's part of life. But the other half of me doesn't believe that. Like, I believe there's lifelong relationships and lifelong like friendships, and you can have people in your life that you can talk to once a week, once a month even, and still have a very solid, close relationship. I just haven't found it yet.
And partly, I haven't found it yet. I wonder if that's because I haven't been that yet.
Yeah.
Because being that means I'm not checking in with people every day. I'm not necessary.
Yeah, necessary. That's a big word.
Tell me about that.
Along the lines of like wanting to take care of everybody, I also want to feel necessary. And I want to feel necessary in somebody's life. I want to be a pillar in your life if I'm going to be in your life.
Mm.
But I've also recently found out that pillar sucks to be the pillar. Like, I hate being that. And so if I hate it, but I love it, what's my middle ground? And I just don't know yet.
Let's unpack that. I want to be necessary in people's lives. Explain that to me a little bit.
I think I feel more wanted and validated in being wanted. Honestly, it's a power trip of like, you needed me. You needed me right now. And I was there. I showed up. We got it done. And it's not like I'm going to turn around and be like, oh, well, you owe me one. Hey, that's not what I'm looking for. It's more of it's a trust thing. And for somebody to trust me in their moment of need, I want to turn around and do the same.
There's different between saying trusting me in their moment of need and needing me because I'm necessary versus wanting me.
Yeah.
Needing me is without me, this building falls down. Without the pillar, it comes crumbling down. So you need me. So now you're obligated to have me there for the function that I serve.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I hate saying it, but being honest with myself, like I know I do the same thing in my job. That necessary feeling I thrive off of, I think in a lot of different ways.
If I can serve this function, I'm necessary, I'm needed, I'm wanted. I mean, you've called a friend before and he was like, yo, just come by.
Yep.
Was that because he needed you? Were you serving a function?
No.
What was it?
It's just because he wanted to kick it. And talking about vulnerability too, I think my facade is helping people until we get to the point where it's like, oh no, I can be vulnerable and be myself now. Cool. And I want to be able to be that guy in the beginning, not the let me do everything, drop everything kind of guy all the time. And I think it's because I need that feeling of needing to be necessary in the beginning to feel validated in the middle and end.
That's a different validation.
Yeah.
How?
I don't want to say it's fake, but it's not real.
What's getting validated?
I want to say my Vader voice is being validated in that more than anything.
Yeah, in a sense.
I almost think that like in the beginning's more of a, like I'm feeding myself. And if I can get that, then I like you. I mean, I still want to help. And like, don't get me wrong. Like I still want to help people even in the middle and the end. Like I'm not just switching up and being like, I don't give a fuck anymore. You're with me. You have to be. It's not like that. And old girlfriend did a really good job of dangling that carrot in front of my face. And so when I was feeling like, oh, I'm not necessary anymore, is when I went to caretaking mode. Mm-hmm. You know, my validation in that, yeah, it's not real because I'm not trying to be caretaking because I just want to caretake. I want to caretake because I want to feel necessary.
Mm-hmm.
It's validating that, which is my Vader.
Recognizing that is huge, man.
Yeah.
What we're talking about, what we're thinking about is how do I shift that? And that happens gradually. You're not just going to snap and there it goes. Cool, I got rid of that. We have to do something other than serving a function to be necessary and needed, to be validated, to have that feel like self-worth. But that's not self-worth. If self-worth comes from being myself, and what I want to do is be myself and bring myself to the table earlier, then I see you nodding your head, but I'm going to flip it for a second. Then there's a huge risk.
The better I'm getting at having boundaries, I'm saying all this because I've been thinking about it a lot lately. Saying no in the beginning versus saying yes, 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 yes. I've found when I say no, when I want to say no, I feel a lot better. Just overall in my relationship, no matter who it is, like with her, with my parents, with anybody, when I want to say no and feel comfortable with myself saying no, I feel more power in that than I ever have saying yes when I wanted to say no. It's just a lot harder to say no, or vice versa. Yes, when I want to say no.
And maybe what you're proving to yourself is it can get easier the more I do it and the more I see that it's actually okay. They can be disappointed. What you're actually strengthening for you when you're doing that is your own self-respect, your own self-esteem, your own self.
That day you said leave 10% disappointment. That day changed my life. Once I allowed, okay, it's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to not be okay. And we're still going to be okay. That shift really changed everything. Because like it's okay for people to be disappointed in my life. Like even my parents, like I'm okay with them being disappointed. I just want them in my life.
Yeah. And maybe it's okay to not be the pillar, to not send the text every morning.
I just don't know what I am though. Like I don't know where I fit in anymore. It's what I've known my whole life. I've always been the pillar.
Those are two different questions. And they kind of go sequentially because you can do them the other way and it would just be fucked up, which is where do I fit in? And who am I anymore? If you figure out where I fit in, then you're just going to become what fits.
Right.
You can, but it's not fun. It's not what we're talking about. It's not authentic. Figuring out who and how I am, how I want to be. That's what I was saying. That's the son you want to be, the friend you want to be. Right. If I'm not serving a function, if I'm wanted, not needed, what is that? What do I bring to the table? What feels like me?
Friend really allowed me to experience what that feels like. Bring absolutely nothing to the table. Sometimes negative. Like sometimes I'm bringing negative to the table. And like I'm still wanted there. I've never had that.
That's who you are. Serving a function. Well, I mean, this is my bias as a therapist, but what better function is there to serve than being authentic and showing people that you can connect and relate from an authentic place?
Yeah, I mean, that's the end goal. It always has been for me. It's just I've never been able to use that tangibly.
It's there. We just don't see it enough.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to that pattern of how we are and how we know how to get certain needs met and wants met and things feel good and how to get my self-worth from other things and other people, not from actually myself. Almost goes back to you saying, yeah, there aren't many good people in LA. How do you find the good people? Well, how do you find friend?
Just showing up, being myself.
Yeah. He didn't bring him a box of fucking shoes and sweaters and shit. He wanted to.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Right?
That's crazy. Yeah, I wanted to.
How's that hitting you right now?
Well, the way I see it now is if I did do that, I probably wouldn't be his friend. What a blessing it was to just show up as myself and not need to buy shoes and sweaters and hoodies and jackets and fucking denim and all this other shit.
That's you being authentic. That's having a friend and having somebody that's like, yeah, I see you.
Yeah.
I see you for you, not for what function you serve to me.
I feel like I've also allowed myself to give myself the opportunity or take the opportunity given.
There it is. Allowing yourself to be in that, allowing yourself to do that, to have that done for you, allowing that. And that can also be validating your authenticity. That sounds a lot more like truly validating for who you are.
I think the hard part for me right now too is like with girlfriend. I like sharing stories the way I share them with you of like, oh, something really cool just happened with me and him. But it's only him because like he's the only person in my life that really like allows me to be me the way he has. At least in LA, I've lost relations because I've been excited of something and they've taken it as I'm better than you type of conversation. You know?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to share with you how great of an experience this was.
Right. Hopefully with a partner, that is what you get to share. I'll call maybe 30% bullshit on something.
Okay.
You're like, okay, bring it on. What do you got?
I love when you call bullshit.
I know you do. You said he's the only one that allows me to be myself. Tell me why I'm calling bullshit on that.
Oh, shit. Okay. I think I've allowed me to be myself.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yep. I've allowed me to be myself around him.
Right.
We can look at what about him makes it easier to be myself. What about others makes it harder or scarier to be myself. I am letting myself be myself around him. I can do this. I can be myself. The more we can lean into that, the more you're going to want to do that other places. And if you start doing that in relationships, it's going to go great or it's going to go not great, which means, oh, this is not the person to be with.
Right. I think this whole situation that happened 2 weeks ago, I thought about it more on that and before and after, obviously. I don't feel any resentment or like hurt. I just feel a lot better in myself now, knowing that I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't cause anything that happened. It wasn't a bad situation. It's just saved me down the line.
Yeah. Saved me down the line and got me to go into my next experience differently and being more authentic earlier on. You said, I want to do that right in the beginning. Okay. We're getting closer to that. It's learning and evolving and growing. And part of the whole thing with your parents too is, oh, right, learning, evolving, and growing there too. And what happens when, and this will be interesting, when the obligation isn't there. You be the son that you want to be and you figure out what that is. Whether or not they're the parents you want them to be, we'll look at that too. Because there's going to be some times when they are and it feels great, and sometimes when they aren't, and we're going to be really disappointed.
Yeah, I think I felt both of those already.
And it's allowing that to be what it is, because we can't actually change it. No matter how much of a function you serve, how much of a pillar you are, can't change that. You allowing yourself to be authentic around somebody. Yeah, it was a gradual process.
Yeah, okay. For sure.
And we are here with you once again.
We sure are. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so question. So I know Drew, so he said, like, I want to talk about finances. That's like big thing in my life right now. And
right.
I guess he says he turns 26 next year, which I realized at first I was like, and then I was like, oh, health insurance, right? So That's how he said it. He started it with like the health insurance. We never, I guess, quite heard, or I don't know if it was discussed or not, but he said that. And then all of a sudden it was like ripping the Band-Aid off. Like, and then all of a sudden he's not going to be supported by his parents at all. So I was kind of confused.
Right.
Because he said they still pay for other stuff too. Is this the impetus for the end of the financial support? Or is there an agreement that they have that once you turn 26, we cut you off? Like, is that a thing you've talked about?
Yeah. So he said it in a few ways. He said that they said, once you turn 26, you're paying for your own health insurance. You're not on ours anymore.
Okay.
And it sort of led to them, I think, saying to him, it's time for you to be financially independent.
Okay.
They've had that talk.
Okay.
Well, actually, they haven't had that talk. They've said things, but they neither side, neither his parents nor Drew, has wanted to really get into it and kind of come up with a plan and look at it too much.
Right.
So it's, oh, this thing is happening to me at some point, and I don't know what it is, and I don't want to touch it. And if I don't talk about it, it's not real, right? Right?
Got it.
It's real and it creeps in.
Yeah. And I think there's two different parts to this. There's the underneath part that we'll get to about how that keeps a connection and showing love and stuff. And the other part, which is, I will say, God, I think, Drew, I was right around your age where I got cut off, and I got a 3-month grace period after I took the bar. And mind you guys, the deal was with my parents, as long as I was in school, they would support me. Hence 3 master's degrees.
That's why.
I'm not a dummy. So it was the scariest, most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. It was, just in a million years, I never thought it would happen in such a good way. And I had my ups and downs because I first got cut off. I became a lawyer and I was making really good money. And then I left and went to being a therapist where I made zero money. And I actually, I was in so much debt too, because I went through my savings. I had zero money. I actually paid for my last degree because I was already cut off. And it was scary. And the best thing about not being supported is that my relationship with my dad became about want versus need. I didn't have to do anything. I had no strings attached. We never had to talk about money. All of a sudden, if I wanted to talk to him, then I would talk to him because I just wanted to see what's going on, not because I needed anything. And again, sure, I shall give the caveat that I was very fortunate to have parents that could help me out and support me. And in some ways, I wish it had happened earlier in life to some degree, so I had learned the value of money more. Sure. And yet I'm totally fine with the way it worked out. And I do think it puts a lot bigger fear into us as we get older and we're used to living a certain way. I remember once my dad sent me caviar dishes for Christmas. And this is when I was already cut off. And I'm like, where the fuck do you think I'm going to get caviar to put in those dishes you gave me? What is wrong with you? So just hearing Drew talk about this, and you said, well, can you maybe get your parents to sort of wean you off or little by little? And he was very dialectic about it. He's like, I mean, I want that. I want to. And also I don't. I don't want their money. I don't want to need their money So I was pretty impressed by that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also looking at, was some of that some black or white thinking, that all or nothing? And can we find middle?
Yes. Yeah.
It's looking at that experience for him. It would make more sense to be black and white, to be all or nothing. Mm-hmm. And I was pushing at that going, well, can they just be there for the safety net? It's funny because he would say, I don't want the safety net. Well, a safety net is to catch you if you fall.
Exactly.
And our upbringing was different.
Right.
My parents were my safety net. They weren't, they didn't support me. I think around 18, I was self-supporting.
Right. That's amazing.
I was working in the music business. I dropped out of college to work in music, and it's amazing, but I also didn't learn money very well. I used to beg my dad for an allowance when I was in high school, and he would never give me an allowance. He'd just say, just take, some money out of my wallet.
Oh.
So fast forward to, I'm working in the music business. I don't understand spending very well. And I wound up racking up huge credit card debt. I had student loan debt that I had to start paying back eventually. And I wound up filing bankruptcy when I was 24 years old.
No shit.
Yeah. And part of that was I took my lawyer, I air quote lawyer, because my lawyer was my dad, who is a lawyer. And he said, just stop paying your credit cards. Just stop paying all these things. Really? He said, yeah. If you stop paying them, then they'll work out a deal with you. So you can, pay it back or it'll just go away. I had no idea that I was destroying my credit. Right. I had no concept of that. So at 24, I filed bankruptcy and just wiped everything off.
Yeah.
And spent the next 10 years of my life working so hard to understand how to build your credit, how to be financially responsible. And I was making my own money, not very good money.
Right.
I was paycheck to paycheck. And I had the safety net of my solidly middle-class parents. Right. And my mom would come to my house and you've got nothing in your fridge. Yeah, not till I get my next paycheck, or I just got an advance.
Yeah.
Maybe I can write a check at the grocery store, the days when you could do that. And it'll just overdraft, but I'll get stuff now. And she'd fill my fridge for me, and it brought me to tears.
Totally.
That's the support. That's the safety net. And for Drew, I don't think he has that kind of relationship. It's either we take care of everything or we take care of nothing.
Yeah. And I work with a lot of my clients on, I think I've talked about this because, I love it, on budgeting and the executive functioning, transitioning into adulthood and all that stuff. Cause it's a different time now. And a lot of kids live with their parents till they're at least mid-20s, if not older. And we aren't taught certain things. How do you find health insurance? And Drew he said how stressed he is about this. His mind's racing. He's not eating a lot. He's sleeping less. And he said, that Vader, it is his motivator, something about needing something like this to spring him into action, to like,
right.
Yes, okay, right, this is happening, so I need to just like do it, as opposed to the weaning off possibly.
Yeah, and there's two sides to it for Drew. Part of it is what you're talking about, the adulting, like learning how to do this and being motivated, and without the rug being pulled out, even if that's just his perception, without that, he won't motivate to take care of this stuff and to adult. On the other side was sort of like what you were saying with your dad. It's the relationship you have with your parents. When you take the financial piece out, then you can have a real relationship, and it's...
Or a different one.
Yeah, but he and I were talking about that kind of difference where you have their love by obligation or their love by choice.
Yep.
And he was struggling with that, and he made a great link. When you have that feeling love by choice, it's so much more powerful when there's an obligation, because we're your parents that support you financially. Then you feel that love. It's like what he was saying about texting in the morning.
Yep.
And making sure he gets a text back. Like that's all obligation.
Does he text them every day? I was wondering that.
He said he texts his mom pretty much every morning.
Okay.
I think there was another episode where we scratched at that too. And he was saying in this one, it was so that I get a text back from them, so they check in with me.
Yep. He creates the situation. You guys talked about that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And you said, what if they're not obligated to take care of him? Like, will they still love you? And he was like, I don't know. He's like, I mean, I'm pretty sure I know, but I don't know. And what if? And so he said he was basically scared to find out if he doesn't text, are they going to text? And
right.
Sort of like coming direct. God, we should get together sometime to create the situation to say like, hey, I'd like to hang out with you today and see what happens. And I get it. It's scary. And it also makes me really sad to think that he may think his parents won't want to connect with him once they're not as much, or may not even love him once they're not financially supporting him. It makes me so sad.
Right.
And I guess not everybody knows that for sure about their parents.
No, they don't. And he doesn't. And what he's seen is he's gathering evidence like, well, he tries to show them some new designs that he was working on, and dad will check it out, and mom wasn't really present. Mm-hmm. So he's finding, when you look for it, you'll find it. He's finding the evidence that says, oh, if there's no obligation there, I'm going to lose them. They're going to fade away. You know, we're not going to be as connected.
Right.
And I think I said it to him either directly or in some ways, like part of why I like therapy for people is that you can try these things and have the support of your therapist so you can process the emotions and what comes up while you're experimenting with this.
Exactly.
You know, and I even said to him, well, what happens if you don't text? Like, I don't know.
Right.
Like, well, can we try that? And I use we language. Well, can we do that? What happens if we do that?
Yeah.
And the saying it that way with the we, so he knows somebody's got him. I got your back. It doesn't have to be you alone, even though we very much are alone. But that idea of let's try, let's see what happens.
Right.
I think he gets to that place because, like you said, Meredith, creating the situations. I mean, sure, you can do that, but then you're constantly creating the situations. And he relayed that to how he is in other relationships, like with his friends, like how he think you'd pick this out and you'd love this. And he was like, I never want to be the guy that invites myself over. I want to be invited.
Totally. Yeah. And that's when he said, you know, I'm like, oh, hey, we should get together sometime, like, as opposed to just like, let's hang out. And I think he was talking about his best friend that likes him for being him, not for what he can bring to the table, just being authentically him. And in fact, there was in the beginning, I think it was, we heard it when he was going to bring his friend a bunch of clothes and shoes and whatever. And he was saying, oh my God, I forgot about that. Thank God I didn't. We probably wouldn't have been friends now.
Right.
I don't need to
serve a function or
exactly. What function do I serve? Right. And so he said something I could really relate to was that when his brother left for college, that was kind of it. And he doesn't really like connect with them that often, or he doesn't text them or call them all the time. And so he feels like he has to be the one, and which is probably why he didn't leave home for a while. And I was just thinking, like me, my mom, and my sister, my sister was older, same thing. She was always super independent and she kind of left and like, that was it. And with me, I was always needed something, quote unquote. And after I graduated from college, like I moved back home for a little bit. And then my mom's always said, thank God I have you. You're always like a little project for me. And I would provide her with these little, like, either there was always something wrong, or at some point when I realized that because she was sick and stuff, I would create things like, oh, Mom, can you help me with da-da-da? And my sister, my mom was like, well, she doesn't need me. So I'm not going to call her. She can call me type shit. and it sounds like, not in a negative way or condescending, but it sounds like his parents lived this like fairly small life, something that they're happy with. But I feel like he said they live in the woods and like don't really have friends or something. I don't know exactly what he said.
Well, yeah, he said something about like they don't really go anywhere. They don't go out. They don't do things. You know, they're homebodies. They've got a nice life.
Right. But he was lonely when he was there, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he found ways. He found friends. He found things. But it's also, there was something that he said too a little while later. Maybe you'll get to this, but I'm jumping to it now because it's that idea that he doesn't just want to be a light friend. He wants to be a pillar in somebody's life.
Oh, the Roman pillar.
Right. We use that a lot because that idea was huge. But before we get to the idea of the pillar, it was just what his experience is somebody is your whole world.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't had very much experience with somebody just being one kind of a friend or a light kind of a friend or support for just this thing. It's all or nothing.
Yeah. The pillar analogy I love. Said you were picturing this big Roman pillar. And if he's the pillar, how much weight is that on him, literally? And for some reason, Drew thinks that if he removes the pillar, it's going to crumble.
Right.
They may be fine.
Yeah. And that's him carrying the weight of his parents' feelings.
Yeah. Or what he assumes are his parents' feelings also.
Right. It might be that they're like, great, we got one kid out of the house. Man, when's the other one going to leave?
Totally. Right.
Right. But he's kind of got holding that. I don't want them to feel so empty and feel so lonely. So I need to stay connected to them for them.
Right.
And kind of looking at, well, are you doing that for them or are you doing that for you?
Right. I also really liked wanting to feel necessary. And he said he sort of thrives off of being necessary also at work. He went through this thing, like he starts off sort of being necessary and wanting validation. And then if it works out, friends or otherwise, then he can start to be himself. Right. And if he's not necessary, then he goes into this caretaking mode, but it's not authentic because he's only caretaking because he's no longer necessary.
Right.
And I thought that was so insightful. And then talking about how he feels a lot more powerful when he says no, when he wants to say no, rather than yes, when he wants to say no. And I was like, yes, totally.
Right. And vice versa.
Yeah.
And the other, and he said that too, and the other way around.
Right.
Like not just saying yes for the sake of saying yes. If I want to say no, I can say no. I don't have to say yes to just please everybody.
Right.
And at the same time, I don't have to say no to please everybody. Like,
yep.
It's recognizing both of those things. And it's so cool to hear him walking through all of this.
Oh yeah.
Because he's really figuring out how he wants to be in the world with his family, with his work relationships and his intimate relationships and his friendships. It's pretty cool. And his past way of thinking of just being the pillar. And he's like, yeah, it just sucks to be a pillar.
Right.
I hate it and I love it. And that's the black or white, the all or nothing.
Yeah. And he actually said at one point, you were talking about something and you said, okay, but what's the but? And he goes, and,
right,
and he's like,
right.
He did the and. You said, well, what's the but? And he said, well, and. I was like, oh,
right.
Okay, buddy. Yeah. And then also we were talking about saying no and how it's hard to say no. And he said, yeah, well, when we talked about that it's okay for people to be disappointed, for me to disappoint people. And then he went on to say, like, that literally changed my life. Learning that changed my life. And I was like, oh, Doug, that's so amazing.
It's really cool because it's something we talked about a long time ago in the podcast or in his sessions. And he still to this day, currently, like we're still listening to this. This is almost a year ago.
Right.
He still references that. It made such a big impact. And it's just a wonderful way for him to show like, right, I'm cool with that now.
Totally.
It's totally okay. But he had to be in therapy and realize that in therapy and get to that, which is so cool that we get to walk through this with him.
Yeah. He said, I don't know who I am or where I fit in, and then you said something like, well, don't start with where you fit in, because then you're just going to figure out where to fit in, right?
Exactly.
Start with, you said, expand on that. What did you say? Figure out who you are first, or?
Well, so there's a book by Sam Keen where he says you need to answer who you are and then where am I going and who's going with me? But you need to get it in that order. Who am I? Where am I going? And who's going with me? If we get it in any other order, we're going to mess ourselves up.
Okay.
And a lot of times we focus on who's going to go there with me. So we get somebody else to kind of fill us up or to answer things with us. And then it doesn't matter where we go or it doesn't matter who we are. Like,
sure. Right.
No, we need to start from ourselves.
Yep.
And that idea of, well, if you just figure out where you fit in, then you're just going to become what fits. You're not going to actually be yourself. If you figure out yourself, you can fit in anywhere. So totally. Ask yourself who you are and then look at where do I fit?
Right. And where you fit is going to be, I guess, when you're authentic and there's a fit, then there's a real fit.
Right.
And then when you brought up, I forgot what it was, but you were like, I'm going to call bullshit. And he's like, I love it when you call bullshit. It was his best friend was the only one who allows him to be himself. And you're like, bullshit. And then he's like, oh, I got it. He's like, I allow myself to be myself with him.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, who is this young lad who has gotten so wise and insightful with Doug?
Right. And this is something really cool, I think, as a therapist. He and I have now been doing therapy in the podcast for over a year now.
Right.
And we have the kind of relationship, clearly you guys can all hear it, where I can say to him, I'm going to call bullshit on that.
Right.
Like you said, Mary, he's like, I love it when you call bullshit. It's being able to challenge a client in a loving way.
Yeah.
When they know that you have their best interest in mind, that you're there to support them, that you're there to lovingly challenge them, to push them forward, not push them over.
Right.
Then it's great. And why I really love this is I'm calling bullshit on this. You said this, and then he got to take over and find it.
Right.
And it's something on the podcast and the breakdowns, we've talked about that before, you and I.
Yep.
Because I'm hearing it, I'll hint at it and drop hints. So moments like this, when I can go, hang on, you said this, I'm calling bullshit. Then it all comes together for him. Such a cool moment.
It's just great. And just hearing you guys talk about all of this, and then he connects to all those. He was like, oh, Vader voice. And, he just like brings back all of those analogies and keeps them in mind. And it's just so cool to see.
Yeah, it's really cool. People have asked me too, like, Matt, do you do this with all your clients? Do these analogies work for everybody? The reason they work so well is because I'm coming up with them in the moment with him when he's looking at a certain situation.
Right.
Because when you're in a situation subjectively, you can't see it for yourself. It's what you and I talk about with the forest for the trees. When you're surrounded by trees. So if you have somebody else kind of going, hey, look at this forest and here's this. And they say it in a way that's objective. That's about, for me, it's catchy analogies. It could be about, well, I had another client who went through this way. And as soon as you take it off of them, it's like a narrative technique. You take it off of them so they see it objectively over there, and looking at it objectively, so much easier to understand and to see and then apply to yourself, right?
100%.
But it's doing it in real time with him. So it's the situations that he's bringing up week to week, they happen to fit. And all of you out there that are listening, like, I would love if these apply to you or see where they can apply to you. It's not a substitute for your own therapy, because if your therapist is in any way like this, then you get to bring this stuff up with your therapist and talk about this. And then these things will fit in so you can see what's happening in your life objectively as it's happening.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It was great. You guys are doing great work. So good.
Oh, thank you.
Can't wait to hear what's next.
I actually cheated this time. I've listened ahead. I've listened ahead to the next one or maybe two sessions. And oh man, one of them just really warmed me, like made me feel like, oh yeah, Nice. And to have those moments as a therapist and even just as a witness, because when I'm listening back to these, I'm listening to myself as a therapist, but I'm also listening as a listener going, hey, what's going on here? Ooh, okay.
Right.
There's some cool stuff happening. And you guys will get to hear it right along with us.
Yay. Stick around.
Find us on all your social medias. yourmentalbreakdown.com is our website. We're all over the Facebook, the Instagram, the TikTok.
Yeah, keep giving us your feedback, you guys. We love it and appreciate it so much and take it all into consideration. And we're going to do episodes here and there, little mini-sodes that talks about some of the feedback you give us. And look, those will be coming out.
We've gotten some good feedback, especially with what we were talking about last week. A lot of stuff has come up for you guys and come to our attention, and we're going to address some of that because the most important thing to me is that we're having these conversations, doing it in a safe space. Granted, we're doing this publicly. It's hard to say that the public is a safe space, but as safe as we can be to have these conversations and keep it spoken, not silent.
Yeah, exactly.
And thank you guys for being one of the best parts of this.
Absolutely. We will talk at you next week.
Indeed. Bye.
Bye.